Hi, and welcome to 10 Weeks, 10 Challenges. My name is Jim Livingston, and over the course of the next 10 weeks, I'm going to share with you 10 of the common challenges that leaders bring to coaching engagements. I'm not just going to share the challenge, I'm also going to share with you some ideas on how to work your way through this issue. So let's start with this week's topic, which is one that comes up surprisingly frequently. And that is, how do I give feedback to someone without impacting their morale, without demotivating them? And what's surprising about this particular topic is that it's a topic that a lot of leaders really, really struggle with, but it's not that difficult once you actually know how to do it the right way. So we're going to share with you sort of 4 steps to how do you give feedback the right way. Firstly, it's about starting with the right intent, framing the issue clearly, exploring the issue together, and eliciting action. Let's go through them one by one. So, starting with the right intent is just that. It's about getting off on the right foot. Here's the simple fact: if you give people feedback the wrong way, they're going to become defensive and argumentative. If you give them feedback the right way, they're going to be more open and receptive to that feedback. How do we give it to them the right way? Well, there's a few things that we need to do. We need to sort of really reframe the way we think about feedback. We have a tendency to look at feedback as though it's bad, as though it's negative. It is not. Feedback is a gift. Without feedback, you would never get the chance to improve. So I think that's the first step, is really reframing how we think about feedback. Secondly, it's about our objective. The objective of feedback is to help people improve, not to prove a point, not to punish someone. If your objective is not to help them improve, do not give feedback. Also, it's about leading with curiosity, not with conclusion. If you're leading with conclusion, you've already made your mind up. Leading with curiosity is about being open to understanding what's going on behind the issue. And in many, many cases, there is something going on behind that issue. And lastly, it's about focusing on feed forward. What do I mean by this? We tend to focus our feedback on telling people what they've done wrong. Here's the reality. What's in the past is in the past. You can't undo what's in the past. The focus for any feedback conversation needs to be on feed forward. It needs to be on what they're doing going forward. All right. So that's really it, about starting off on the right foot, right? Thinking about reframing the way we think about feedback, focusing on improving people, leading with curiosity, and focusing on that feed forward. Next, it's about framing the issue clearly. And as I said, you want to give them feedback, but they want that feedback to be very specific, very quick, to the point. You don't want to beat around the bush. You don't want to sugarcoat it, right? It is not something that is personal. It is something that is very objective. It is something that's very factual. So there's different models you could use. We like the SBI model, which is a very popular model, which stands for Situation, Behavior, Impact. You explain the situation you observed, you explain the behavior you observed, and you explain the impact. It's not an opinion. It's not about the person. It's just an observation of what you've seen. An example would be, I noticed during yesterday's sales presentation, you seemed unsure of yourself and made some errors on the pricing. I'm concerned that it's impacted our reputation in front of the customer. That's an example of the situation, the behavior impact. It's not personal. It's not an opinion. It's just sharing an objective sharing an objective of what you've observed. All right. This should be quick. It should be to the point. Right. 30 seconds. It's done. The focus is not on telling them what they've done wrong. The focus is on the next part. And the next part is really about exploring it together. And when I mean that, I mean exploring it together. It's not a one-way conversation. It's not you doing all the talking. It's a conversation where you really adopt a coaching approach, where you want to help the person explore the issue. You want to expand their awareness around the issue, and you want to identify possibilities of what they need to do going forward to make sure that it doesn't happen again. So what was the issue? Why was it an issue? What was going through your mind? How were you feeling? What did you learn through the process? What could you have done differently? Going forward, what are some of the things that you could do differently? What might be some of the steps? So it is very much a collaborative conversation. It's a coaching approach where you really want to sort of look at what they did and what they need to do going forward, right? That's exploring together. The last step is about eliciting action, which is really about exploring, what did we learn? What did we learn through this conversation? What did we learn about ourselves? What have we learned about others? Right? There needs to be some learning that comes out of this conversation. It's also about defining some next steps. Going forward, what are you going to do differently? Going forward, what are you going to do to rectify it, to make sure it never happens again? These need to be some very specific, actionable steps. there also needs to be an agreed follow-up. When are we going to follow up on this? How are we going to follow up on this? What would be a good measure of success for this? And there you have it. That's giving feedback, or as I like to say, giving feed forward, right? It is a focus on helping someone recognize a behavior or a bit of performance that's not acceptable, and then helping them to explore what acceptable looks like and define what acceptable looks like, and really get them thinking about how they need to go forward to make sure it doesn't happen again.